Hear ye one and all. Court is in session and the Honorable GotBot presiding as we begin to look at the curious case of this guy. This is the Unique Toys UT-W01 Warhawk. And we're continuing on here with our coverage of the consideration of the character of Predaking in 2018. More specifically, the toy offerings that we've had for him. And there have been a lot over the last few years, but in light of recent toy releases and fluctuating markets and collector tastes and everything else, maybe it's time that we kind of take a closer look at these guys again. Upon initial release, this dude retailed for about $100. That is a steep price. I've seen him more recently for as low as about $24, $25 on his own anyway. That's a significant change, and perhaps he's worth a second look. All that being said, he is a third-party interpretation of the Transformers character of Dive Bomb, a Predacon, a Decepticon, and a pretty darn interesting arm. Oh, and he's also the guy who apparently stole this dude's name. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was a storyline like that, and the two of these guys have a history. By the way, though we'll look at it closer, note the size comparison. Anyway, is he good? Is he bad? Well, we're going to discuss all that in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, as always, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. Please like, comment, share, and most importantly now, subscribe. Your support has never mattered more than it does right now. Of course, I'm heading toward a goal and hopefully doing some exciting things when we reach that 1,000 mark. But on to this guy, because he is the focus today. Released a few years ago when several third-party companies were trying to kind of give their interpretation of the character of Predaking, Unique Toys offered Warhawk as the first in their line. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can correct me on this if I am, this was their first set of toys released, or at least one of their very earliest. A mighty big thing to undertake a character like Predaking as your first real offering. So many angles, such an interesting style and detailing that he was not going to be easy to do. And when other more established companies announced that they were doing the same thing, Unique Toys really wanted to get to market. And that brings us to the story of this guy. There are good points, there are bad points, and we're going to get into all of them. But for now, I can tell you this: he can do this, nice straight up and down with that sword of his. You know, it's just like he's painting a wall. It's dynamic. Dynamic. I think we can all agree that that aspect is just a little bit sad. Nevertheless, let's get into the details of this guy. Head over to the table and take a closer look. Now, I love you guys and I love when you come by, but this one I have to address slightly differently. You see, I always say we're going to look at them in terms of paint apps, posability, playability, and of course, transformation. But his paint apps, I want to touch on very first thing, because we have to kind of look at them a little bit differently. Normally, I always compare it to the original G1 animation, but in Season 3, the animation varied so much that I don't think that that would be really fair to this guy. The only thing that sort of stayed consistent with the animation was that his wings had an orange edging all the way out on top, and instead of being gold, they were black. Besides that, he had a green face and sometimes green eyes, and the yellow that's on his chest was sometimes on his chest and sometimes on his tummy. Oh, and the black sections up by his head, they were sometimes gold, often gold, but I don't know if we can really grade him that way because there was such a variance. So, for once, we're going to look at him in terms of his original toy. How true is this to that? Well, very true, to be honest with you. In fact, about the only kind of differences that I can point out is that the whole waist pelvis section was red, as where this guy's tummy is red, and there was probably more detailing, a little bit of extra silver detailing down on the lower leg. Besides that, this is pretty true and pretty accurate, enough that I'm going to start this guy off by scoring his paint apps as a 9.75. There's no mistaking that this is indeed a rendition of the character of Dive Bomb. Okay, let's look at the couple of accessories that come with him. But before we do that, I just want to mention, you'll notice that I didn't show off a box or anything here, because this guy arrived as part of a set, and for some peculiar reason he never had a box. He came in a bag, a very well packed bag with a lot of styrofoam and whatnot, but a bag nevertheless. It has been proposed that these more affordable sets were factory rejects. I don't know if that's true, and if that's the case, then this guy becomes even a little bit more interesting. Okay, on to the accessories we go. And the first accessory is this glorious sword of black and gold with a little red highlight. I love the little red detailing that's on it. There is, however, no ports or pegs molded on this thing other than the handle, which means that there's pretty much no way that you're going to be able to store this. So if it's not in his hand, you're going to have to lay it to the side. That's a little bit unfortunate. But nevertheless, it looks pretty glorious. You may notice that I have not showed him off yet with any sort of a blaster. He doesn't come with one, but that's not the whole story, and eventually we'll get to the rest of that. But for now, he comes with this sword, and I think it looks beautiful. And since he is an arm, he comes with this fantastic hand. Now, a lot of people have complained about the spike here and down here being too long. I suppose you could cut them off, and the argument could be made that they are too long. Some people do not like the kind of pointed tips of his thumb and his fingers. I understand that. He has a ball joint hinge way in here, a hinge at the first knuckle, a hinge at the second knuckle, so that his fingers can, you know, totally ball up into a fist, or he can, you know, point, or he can, of course, do the whole rock symbol thing. In terms of them being able to spread apart, you kind of get that much. And we have a ball joint back here. This has a little peg here and a little rectangular peg here. It sandwiches in between his legs, or his feet, I guess, his ankles, when they go together in order to, you know, make the arm. It's, at least on the copy I have, a very secure fit, but it also gives him, you know, inward wrist articulation, and of course, a wrist rotation. I don't think there's any way that you can complain about the effectiveness of it. Also, I'll note it here now, there's I guess a little rectangular peg here, kind of on an angle. That is what his massive Predaking sword goes on over. And again, on this copy, it holds really, really nice and securely. I love this hand. It might be kind of stylized, but it looks mean and menacing. And considering, you know, Predaking is made up of a bunch of Predacons, you would tend to think of him in a very beast-like nature, and these pointed fingertips really do look like claws. I think it's a nice touch. Anyway, on to the figure we go. Before we go on, here's a little size comparison with some recent releases. This, of course, is the Deluxe Class Power of the Primes Slug, who I looked at in full in episode 343 and the custom work I did on him, so you can check that out. And in episode 344, I looked at my custom painted Power of the Primes, Swoop. This guy is obviously a deluxe class figure. There's no mistaking it. He fits in extremely nicely here, and he does have a very good kind of classics look to him. By the way, I had scored the paint apps very high. A lot of people complain that the paint on his chest is kind of fuzzy. I don't really find it, at least not on this one, or I don't recognize what fuzzy paint looks like. That's also an option. Either way, I still stand by that 9.75. Let's move into his articulation. So here we are again, and where to begin with this guy? Well, it's kind of interesting. There's good and not so good points to him. Let's look at the good first. The head is on a ball joint, and it can go left and right. We have a bit of wiggle. You can't really look up or down. If you try to look down, you're really just pushing the bird head down over his face. But nevertheless, I guess that's an option if you want his robot to have a bird head. His wings can angle back, about that far, and they can move. Here you go. They can move all the way up, all the way down. We can move them like this and spread these out, but the thing is, these four don't really spread out very far, and there's no locking point. So if you do want to spread them out, you kind of got to guess at it a bit, and you can have it look something like that, but it's an option if you're inclined. I wouldn't, because his wings are, from what I recall, supposed to be down like that. I do love the gold on them though. The shoulders can go forward and they can go back. We have out to the side. They do all the arm things that an arm should do. Almost. We have a nice deep elbow. We even have wrists that can angle back because of transformation. Here's the problem. No bicep swivel. Because these arms slide up kind of into the shoulder for transformation, he does not have a bicep swivel. That's a major weakness on any figure that would kind of come out in the modern era. Nevertheless, he does have a waist swivel, and he does have, you know, the ability to kick all the way forward, and if you get his tail feathers out of the way, he can go all the way back. That's excellent. We have a nice deep knee, and we do have a thigh swivel, though on this one it's a tight thigh swivel, but it's there nonetheless, and the toes tilt up and down again for transformation. There's a lot the guy can do. It's not to say he's perfect, because he's not, but there is a lot to like here. Honestly, I'm going to score his articulation at about a 6.5. I mean, a lot of it is here. He actually makes a great arm when we get to that. And his bird mode is what it is. It's not the best, but it's all right. The big thing that hurts this guy is the lack of that bicep. If he had that, if the engineering had been taken just a little bit further and he hadn't been rushed to market in order to be kind of the first one out there, I think they could have reworked that bicep a little bit and given us something just slightly better. And that would have affected his overall articulation score kind of dramatically. It would have went way up because he really has everything else. Now, a lot of people have said that the plastic feels cheap on this guy. Here's the thing. If we're comparing it at the original cost of admission, yes, it does. But if we're looking at it, at a price that is closer to what a current deluxe class figure goes for, and if we're looking at it in comparison to kind of current mainline releases, honestly, he feels, at least this version feels pretty much the same. I really don't notice any kind of a significant difference, and I don't feel like I'm going to break anything on this guy, though we're going to get to that in a little bit as well. Okay, so we have a 6.5, we have a 9.75. Overall score for this guy now is somewhere around an 8. Let's look at him next in his bird mode and see how the transformation goes in order to get to that. So, before moving on here, I just want to note again that though the sword can go in his hand, there's no storage for it. It would have been nice if there was a way maybe for the fist to, I don't know, hang out as a backpack or something, but again, I have not seen any way to do that. So they do need to go to the side. That is a bit unfortunate, but I think that the guy looks so good that it's forgivable, at least for me, maybe not for you. So, transformation into his bird mode. Where do we begin? Easy stuff first, as always. We flip up the fist, and we flip up the fist, just like that. We collapse the arm in, and collapse it in. And we push the shoulders in. Now, a lot of people at this point have complained and said, it's impossible to get these shoulders out. I think the trick, if you want them out, is to open the arm there and then reach up underneath into his armpit and hold onto the shoulder, and then you should be able to extend the whole piece. Now, it's not really working for me there, but there you go. Extend the whole piece, and really when you do that, you're going to have the bicep extended anyway. So, closing that up, pushing that in. We bring that down over his face. We bring his legs together and we flip up his feet. We peg the legs together and we push them up. Now, we come down here and we have his claws. There's one here and two on the back. Now you might say, hey, is that correct? Not quite, because you also need to turn him at the waist. The two claws, I suppose we'll call them, should be out front and the one should be in back. But in the end, this is basically what you have. If you want, you can extend these wings now. Standing up, it's, you know, it's a bird-esque mode. Some people like the fact that you can still kind of bend his legs a little bit. In fact, you can even split them, which is cool. I mean, you can have him diving in and grabbing something. You can straighten them out and put him in a flying pose and even lift up the head. By the way, this mouth opens and closes, but it does tend to like to just stay open, like it tends to just kind of fall open. But in the end, this is your bird mode. And of course, you still have the wings. I mean, if you want your bird to have wings up over like this, I guess you can. But this is, you know, again, kind of good for landing, right? I respect that. So there are indeed options here, and I think it gives us a kind of a cool looking bird in the end. Maybe not for everyone, but I dig it. Okay, now that leaves us with one mode to go through, and that one again is not hard to get to. So we're going to extend the legs all the way down. We're going to open out this arm here, and we'll even open out this arm here, because we need to take his tummy section, not the waist, the tummy. The tummy section has the tail feathers attached to it. Bring the tail feathers out to the front so that they're on the same side as the chest and the head. Moving on here, we next take the waist and turn it this way. Or at least I would suggest turning it this way, because it gives you the knee and the hip for a double elbow bend. You could turn it the other way if you're inclined, but I also kind of like this detailing. There is a very tight combiner peg on his back that I had to wedge out. Honestly, I never put it back down. I always leave it out like this. It's kind of a hex shape. I don't know if that's the best choice or not, but it's what they went with. Then we come to his wings, because of course these wings are indeed in the way. You see, normally these wings should come off and become the kind of backpack wings for Predaking, but these would not nearly be large enough for the combined mode. And the combined mode, admittedly, would be way too small if it was using these. So they need to come off because this is how it connects in. Could you put them down and sort of leave them on? Not really, because this is as far down as they go. I suppose you could connect them in and leave these on, but it doesn't really look right. So, how do we take these off? And this has been the point of contention for a lot of people, saying that they break them. So let's take a closer look. You can sort of see how they're in. We have the wing that has a little black nub on it that goes into this orange section here. A lot of people try to pull it out straight and break the wing, or at least break the orange section. I have fiddled with this guy a lot and converted him a lot, and don't have so much as a stress mark. It's a pretty simple way to approach it. Whether you are putting it in the slot or removing it, you basically just need to wedge it. Softly, easily. This is the little black nub. If you're taking it out, you wedge it out. If you're taking it in, you kind of come down underneath, put your finger on the other side, and just wedge it in. It's actually kind of tight and secure. I like the method that was used there, but you can't kind of go at it straight on. You really need to have angles help you. So you take that one off, and you take that one off. And again, as I said, I don't so much as see a stress mark. These arms, they can go back in by the body. And we have this. We split the legs, and there's a little slot down here and a little slot down there. You take the fist section and you put it in, and then you sandwich the other leg around it, and in the end, boom, there you have an arm. So we have an arm, very Combiner Wars-esque. We have the shoulder attachment right here. We have a very deep elbow bend, double elbow really. We do have a bicep swivel because of the waist of this guy. We have wrist swivel and all of that hand articulation that I mentioned. He can have his hand go in like that if you want him to. Here's the thing, I think it's a really effective arm. I like this method. I thought it worked well for Combiner Wars. I think that depending on the molds, it can work well during Power of the Primes. And I think that it was very highly effective here. You can even get the tail fin or the tail feathers out of the way as much as you want. It's up to you. His conversion is easy through all modes. There's nothing challenging about this guy. It's kind of interesting how they pulled off certain things, but overall it's not challenging. I don't have any stress marks on these. I always approach them by an angle, and I think that that works the best. I'm giving his transformation, honestly, because it's quick and easy between all modes, 10. I think it's fantastic. He was an 8. He just got a 10. This guy, overall, is a 9. Now, I get it. A lot of people will say, whoa, he is anything but a 9. So, let's kind of address that for just a second before we get out of here. If we're looking at him for the original price point, and if we're looking at him in comparison to what else came out around that time, and what was considered the standard plastic quality and whatnot for the time, honestly, if I spent $100 on this guy, he would be about a 5, because it's not worth that. But if I look at him today in 2018 and how he relates to Power of the Primes and Titans return releases, can he fit in with those official mainstream toys? Yeah. Can he do it for a price point that is similar to that? Yeah. And only for that reason does he get a 9 right now. So it's all kind of about quantifying things. A few years ago, no, he's a 5. There's no doubt about it. But in light of current conditions and current changes, I think I really like the guy. And that sort of shocks me because in all the feedback I heard, I really didn't expect much. So there you have the story of the first member of the Warlord Combiner. This arm looks very familiar as a Combiner Wars limb. The engineering is much the same and it's quite functional with a heavy ratchet joint here, as previously mentioned, and of course our nice double elbow bend and a great fist. I know, I keep harping on the fist, but it just looks so menacing and excellently sculpted to me. Was he worth the original price of admission to play this game? No, definitely not. However, if we look at him in light of being similar to what we consider a typical Transformers Deluxe class figure, then I think he stacks up really nicely. And if we look at the fact that he can be, picked up much more affordably as part of a set or even by himself for a reduced cost, he may very well be worth entertaining as a possible part of your collection too. Anyway, we're going to continue on with part 2 of this and continue our evaluation of this incarnation of Predaking next time. In the meantime, again, I'm going to ask you to please hit that subscribe button. It is so very important now, and it would be ever so much appreciated. What can I say? Everyone's important. And besides that, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for giving me a little bit of your very valuable time. Let me know what you think. And I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together for another visit right here inside the videos.